Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are, and welcome to our Google Hangout on Air for soft registration question and answers. Donna Wiegel, who is the Associate Director for the ELCA Youth Gathering, or the Assistant Director, I suppose, officially for the ELCA Youth Gathering. If you have questions, please submit those on the questions panel on the right side of the event, and we should be able to see them and answer them. If you have, or you can submit those on Twitter via the hashtag RiseUpELCA. Donna, good morning, welcome, and why don't you say hi and introduce who you've got in the room with you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Andy, for facilitating this. I have Natalie Young, who many of you might already know, and if not, she is the voice that you hear when you call, and she has all the answers to the questions as well. And on my left, I have Paul Amlin, who is our Director for Youth Ministry, and he and his technical knowledge have been just such a boon to everything that we do here in our office. So having said all that, I hope that we can help with some of your questions.
Donna, do you want to go ahead and start by just giving us an overview of the registration process? And in particular, I think folks might be interested in knowing how that's changing a little bit in the fact that the well-based gathering check-in.
Yes, absolutely. We started our soft registration September 15th, and as of the last time I looked, just right after lunch, we were up to 3,500 individual registrations for the gathering, and we've got the hard opening on October 15th, and that's when you can actually submit all your information and get your confirmation information. One of the things that will be different this time, we have a lot of things that are the same, and we have other things that will be different. And part of what Andy was referencing was in 2012, all congregations needed to pay in advance prior to arrival, and that helps facilitate the ease in which we can get groups checked in. And part of that also cuts down on the expenses that we have as a staff in having to have all the people there to handle checks and money and count and deposits and brinks pickups and all of that. And so this time what we're doing, we're simplifying the process altogether. And you will be able to check in at your hotel. We're not even really calling it registration because that's what you're doing prior to arrival. When you get to Detroit and reach your hotel, you will be met by your community life staff, and they will have a list of all the congregations assigned to your hotel, and you will check in and get your wristbands and all the orientation that you need, and then when you get down to Ford Field for the opening mass gathering, that's when you get your backpack and your Bible.
All right, Donna, we have a question from Tim Jacobson, who's wondering what forms he's going to need to turn in at the gathering itself.
At this point, the forms that we have for all of the adult leaders to use, you need to hang on to that. I would give all the forms to your primary leader for the group, the medical forms, all the covenants, the agreements and waivers. Print all of that out, have it all signed, and keep it together, bring it with you. We don't actually collect anything, but you need to have it with you. Medical forms, sometimes they need to see that you have that before you can get on a bus to go to your service site. So there's just a lot of things, and that's one of the responsibilities for the primary adult leader of the group, is to have everybody's paperwork. But you don't have to worry about sending it in. Just keep it together.
Lisa Herlocker is wondering if two congregations want to travel together in order to share adult leaders. What happens if one of the groups has scholarship money, but the congregational ID they want to use belongs to the other larger group? Can you address that?
Yes, thank you, Lisa. That's actually a very good question, and it's already happened that people do apply for financial assistance prior to registration, and then as your group gets solidified, find that you'll be registering with another larger group. All you need to do is send us an email, send it to gathering@elca.org, and give us the congregational ID of the church that had the assistance applied to, and the congregational ID of the church that is actually registering those young people, and we can switch it over.
And what's the email address for that, Donna?
Gathering@elca.org.
Thanks. I'm not seeing any other questions that have popped up quite yet, although I'm sure there will be some, so I think we should stick around for longer. Thanks to you that have joined us. Did I hear Natalie want to jump in with something?
No, but I will add to that. We can move the financial assistance around, but when you're talking about actual funds that come from congregations, once we receive your funding, your check from your congregation, if you have substitutions that happen within the group, you need to make sure that you do handle all those transactions at a congregational level. In other words, if you've already paid your deposit and someone drops out, that deposit, of course, is not refunded, but any additional funds need to come from the person who's replacing that person. Andy, are you reading the questions?
Yep. Jacob Smith is wondering where he finds his congregational ID. I'm guessing he's wondering that on behalf of someone else.
Your congregational ID is found in your church in the ELCA yearbook, which you should have a copy of in your church office. We did send an email blast to all pastors and youth leaders that are rostered in the church, giving them this information and letting folks know to pass it on to those in youth ministry because it will be necessary. When you log on to register, you will be asked for your congregational ID number, and then you'll see a screen pop up with your congregation. And so that's an easy way to, if you're First Lutheran Church and you put in a 5-digit number and it comes up as Trinity, then you know that there's an error somewhere. So it really helps to keep your account as yours. So your congregational ID and then the primary leader email address or whoever's email address you use to establish the account, that's the key to get you back in and out, and you can add people, you can substitute people, you can look at your financial stuff, you can see when your checks post, you can see when they've been posted to your account. And as we get closer to the gathering, you can see your rotation, the order in which you will be participating in the programmatic schedule at the gathering.
So in essence, the congregational ID it becomes the username and the email address becomes the password in order to access the registration account.
Well said.
Tim Jacobson is wondering what advice you have for him for registration as a first-time gathering participant, and he's taken the challenge on of being the primary adult leader for his first gathering.
Another very good question. If this is your first gathering, I know that You should join our Facebook page. A lot of information is on that. Kathy Hunstead, who works with our Synod coordinators, um, has prepared a lot of information for adult leaders and kind of like outlining what the job description actually is, some of the responsibilities. As primary leader, you will be tasked with just tracking all of the registrations, making sure that payments are made, and then when it comes time to get your housing assignment in late January, February, making sure that, and you'll be notified when that time comes, making sure that you follow up with sending your rooming list to the hotel and making that payment. So I would continue watching the G News, the Facebook page, the Gathering website, and just kind of, and then talk with your Synod coordinator about the best practices for adult leaders.
I'd also add to make sure that if you, for some reason, change your email address or the primary adult leader changes, make sure that you get checking whatever ads you sign up with, because there's a lot of important email that will get sent to that primary adult email, leader email address. Kathy
That's
S.
very true.
says that several years ago, Kathy S. says that several years ago when her daughter went, they had to sign up for a preferred service area, and she's wondering if that's going to be the case now.
Yeah, I remember when we did that, and that was in 2006. We are not doing that this time because everything is such a moving part, and it's just easier to look at the service opportunities we have and the capacity, and then matching it with groups. There will be posted a list of things that everybody should be bringing for to the gathering to prepare for service, but you will not need to sign up ahead of time for that. In the past, we didn't have opportunities for everyone. Now we do make sure that everyone participates in a service experience, justice experience.
Kathy's also wondering if we have a suggestion on a good adult to youth ratio for a group.
Generally speaking, what we've had in the past is at least one adult for every 9 youth, but what it ends up being, our average is one adult for every 5 youth. And that's generally a pretty good ratio.
I broke up a little bit on my end, but I think our required is one adult for every 9 youth. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
Also, just as in case you didn't catch it the first time, the password is the primary adult leader email, and the username is the congregational ID. And that's kind of how you sign into the Gatherings database. And there's a lot of information Donna was indicating that will be communicated via that database in the future. So you can't just use it to register this month and then forget about it, because you'll need to get back in there again and again over time.
Right, and when we have something to push out to the adult leaders, we will do that through email, the email that you have associated with that account, and we'll tell you, go back into your account and look at whatever, and see your schedule, see your hotel, see the information that we're trying to get to you.
Courtney Geibert is saying that her pastor who is coming to the gathering doesn't want to sign the ELCA gathering medical/emergency form, and according to the instructions they need to bring a completed copy of this form for each participant. And is this a problem if that form isn't signed by the pastor?
We understand that congregations need to do what works best for them to come to the gathering, If the pastor doesn't want to sign the medical form, we can't make anybody do that. We can't micromanage this for congregations. What I can say is that those who don't risk being put in jeopardy in case of an emergency, because it means that we can't get information from the medical providers. It means that we can't, if we can't get information, then we can't get word to the folks back at home. It's all part of our risk management plan. We know where all of our congregations are at any single time of the day. We've got your schedule, we've got that master list. So I guess the pastor is coming and he doesn't want to sign it, so does that mean that nobody's going to sign anything? If nobody signs anything, you might run into a problem getting on the bus to go to your service site. If that site has as a stipulation that everybody needs to have a medical form, there's a whole, it's like cleaning out a closet. A lot of things start to fall out. But the bottom line, we don't micromanage. You're not going to get to your hotel and have community life staff say, do you have this, this, and this? There's not a checklist. They will check you in, give you your wristbands. It's just that you will be assuming more risk for your congregation. And I would
We have
invite
another
others
question
too.
in related forums from Elizabeth Peterson, who's wondering. I'm sorry, Donna. I was just commenting, we have another question from Elizabeth Peterson, who is wondering why on the medical emergency form it asks for Social Security number.
That's a basic piece of identification that emergency providers ask for should such a thing happen. That's why you would need that information. Certainly, as with the other one, if you are uncomfortable with that, you don't need to put it on there, and hopefully nothing happens in an emergency sense that, that the doctors need that information.
Barbara Harner is wondering to follow.
Yes. Andy?
Go ahead.
One second. Just, I want to reiterate that we don't collect these forms, so it's not like you're getting it to us in any way. You have it available with your primary leader in case of an emergency. We're not getting any of this stuff. But your adult primary leader should have it all for every participant.
There was a question about Mile, and if congregation is registering for Mile, are they going to stay at Wayne State for Mile and then also throughout the gathering?
Yes. Congregations coming for Mile will be housed at Wayne State, and the expectation is that they will remain there for the duration of the gathering. They will be shuttled every day. We've got other groups that will be housed at Wayne State for the gathering. They will have access to the dining hall, and it seemed kind of silly to have to move people from Wayne State. So Wayne State will essentially become their hotel for the gathering.
Kathy S. is wondering about a payment schedule for the gathering and when the first payment's due.
The first payment is due when you hit submit on the registration in the database. You will be prompted to print out a page, and it will have your group and all the names, everybody that you've signed up, and then it will have an amount if you want to pay in full or if you want to just pay deposits for everybody. You pick one of those options, and that's the amount that you send in. Check. Unfortunately, we can't take credit cards. You send that to our bank in St. Louis. There's a lockbox address on the form, so you'll be able to just all the information you need is on the form that you print out. And that's when you send your first payment in. Balances must be paid by May 15th of 2015. And we will send reminders. This is some of the emails that primary leaders will get from the gathering. It's also on the website, on our schedule calendar.
We've got a question about if a young person can attend as an independent if their congregation isn't going, or how they should handle that.
The gathering is not meant to be experienced individually. It's really, the small group is so important. I think a young person could work with the synod coordinator to find a congregation that's close, that's local, and then he or she could participate with that congregation in the whole getting ready process and in the covenanting process and build those relationships prior to coming to the gathering.
We had a question come in over Twitter from Calvary Lutheran in Wilmar. If they're planning on traveling with other churches, for them to stay in the same hotel, and if so, how would they indicate that or communicate that with you?
In the database, there will be, in addition to your congregational ID that gets you in, there's another field where you would list congregational IDs of other congregations that you're traveling with. That's where they would go. In addition, they would also put your congregational ID in that field, and that's the way that we can match you up. Now, if you're flying, okay, I'm reading the question because there's a lot of underlying things here. Once you get to the hotel, oh no, that's the next question. Yeah, if you're coming down on buses, we're going to have, I can't guarantee that you'll be in the same hotel, but you will be in a very close hotel. Andy, do you want to bring up the next question, because
so I think
it kind of ties...
you started answering Lisa's question, which is that Lisa's getting questions in her synod about transportation from hotels to downtown, since the majority of us will be flying to the gathering from Lisa's synod, which is out in California. Can you explain how this will work? Should they think about renting a car?
Okay, first of all, renting a car is a great idea. For the first time, the gathering is allowing congregations to drive themselves in and out of the city, and we will have parking available. Most of the parking at the hotels are free. Most of them have, the ones with surface lots, parking is free. There will be shuttling from the airport to the hotels, and we've got a whole sign-up process that's being developed right now with our transportation team. And once you get your hotel assignment, if you're flying, you will be able to go and sign up for shuttling from the hotel or from the airport to your hotel, and this is at no charge. This is something that the city is helping us with, because it's we have not had to do shuttling since 2006, so I realize that we've had 2 gathering cycles where people have not had, they've not had to think about shuttling. So this is a new thing for a lot of folks, but we're trying to take the worry out of it.
I see that we disappeared to Kathy S., but I also see 22 other folks are still watching, so I don't think we disappeared for everybody. But we have answered all the current questions. If there are other questions folks have that want to submit, either via the question and answer app on the right-hand column there of the next to the video, or via Twitter with the hashtag RiseUpELCA, we'd be happy to pass those along to Donna. Donna, what else do you think we should know?
Well, I think you should know that with the gathering program, everybody gets together as a synod on one of the days. Everybody goes to the service sites on one of your days, and everybody goes to the convention center to have experiential learning on one of your days. The days end at Ford Field, which we've always called the Dome in the past, with other programming, and then afterwards everyone gets shuttled back to hotels. Um, this, the Proclaim Story, which is a Synod Day, that's the day when all the congregations get together in meeting spaces in hotels and in the convention center with their bishop and worship and have other programming, is what's driving the rotation schedule. So we need to make sure that all the congregations from each synod have their synod day on the same day. So that means, that's what I mean when I say that it's driving the rotation. Everybody goes down to the downtown area first thing in the morning and then comes back at the end of the day. And if we can't get synods together in one hotel, we'll put them on the same route. We'll have different shuttle routes, and you will be on the same route. If you're driving and have your own vehicle, if you're all together on the same bus, we can work to find you a place to stay together.
There is a question here from Andrea Myers about plans for daily shuttles from hotels to Cobo. You've addressed that a little bit, but you might want to talk about how many shuttle routes we're planning and things of that nature.
Well, at this time, the pieces are still in motion, but we will have several shuttle routes, and what we're trying to figure out now is how to identify them, by hotels. They're all, if you look at Detroit, everybody holds up a hand. I guess it would be this hand because up here is Upper Michigan, and this is Detroit. And as you come out of the city, there's along the expressways, there's like 5 different spokes. And those are the routes that where our housing is. And so we will, depending on what that schedule is for the day, some days you won't have to leave quite so early. We're not making everybody get up for their Justice Day, to be someplace at 5 in the morning as we had to do in 2012. So the day will start a little bit later than it has in the past, which is good, and it will get you downtown. All buses come down to the Cobo Center, and then the groups are dispersed either to the bus launch for their Practice Justice experience, or dispersed to different hotels and ballrooms for their Proclaim Story, and for their and to Cobo Convention Center for their Proclaim Community Day. And the Cobo Convention Center has just undergone a major multi-million-dollar renovation, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's on the river, and it opens up onto the river, and your groups will stand there and look out, and it's beautiful, and you will be looking south to Canada.
We also had another bus-related question from Brett Christensen about if they are taking a bus to the gathering, will those buses be available to get them in back each day? And I'm assuming Brett's wondering if that's if they sublease the buses to the Proclaim Justice team, if though they still have them to use to get back and forth to the city. So do you know the answer to that yet, or is that still in transportation team's decision process?
Well, I know that the answer will be yes. I do. Buses to subcontract, and there is a place in the database that you can check if you are interested in subleasing your charter synod bus to us.
We've got a rumor about food trucks coming to Detroit for the gathering, and from Jay Clock, and wondering if this is actually true, and hoping it's actually true.
We have talked about that, and What's that?
I was just wondering if you knew anything more than I did.
Yeah. Well, I know that Charlie Roberts, the community life team leader, is really working on this one. It would be amazing, and that's also a good way to help stimulate the local economy and making sure that a lot of the people that we support, not just in the hospitality, in the hotels and convention center, um, so a lot of we help spur the economy in that way as well. So yeah, the answer is that rumor is true, and we certainly hope to have them there. And if we get them there, yes, they will be at Ford Field.
All right, we've got another question Twitter from Sarah Matha, wondering when volunteers will know if they have been accepted as volunteers. I know that's a little outside the registration area, but
Well, people are
where are we
wondering.
at in
The
that process?
volunteer
That's a
team,
Natalie question.
yeah. Well, the volunteer team is working in October. They're meeting about mid-October, and they've got all of the applications, and then we'll get everything screened. We'll get all the background checks done, and then they're ready to go. So I would say by the end of November, which is actually earlier than we've ever had it in the past.
All right, do we have any other questions from folks? Otherwise, want to make sure folks get a chance to ask their questions, but also want to let folks in Chicago get back to doing what else they need to be doing today. Or at least we could have more hand modeling of Detroit, Donna. People like that.
Oh, I got this. The first youth gathering I went to in Michigan, and the first small group that I joined, it would show me where you are, would show me where you're from on your hand. And so down here would be Detroit, and then down here would be Ohio. And then somebody made a funny and went like this for, I'm from Nebraska. But it's a very common greeting in Michigan. Show me where you're from on your hand.
Jeff Kelty is wondering, will we see sites if we attend the extravaganza coming up in late January and early February?
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't. We're trying to encourage people to get to know the city. You may not see your hotel. Just kind of depends on where your hotel is located. It may be in Dearborn, and the E is downtown Detroit. But one of the things we really want to introduce congregations to, having to do with the history of Detroit, is the importance of Detroit in the Underground Railroad on the way to Canada. And there's an amazing statue on the riverfront with a family looking across the river south into Canada, and in the Underground Railroad, they refer to Detroit as midnight to freedom. And midnight was Detroit, freedom was Canada. And that always gives me goosebumps when I think about it. There's so much to see and do. If you have a passport, you can go south into Canada. Eh?
And Donna, am I remembering correctly that the extravaganza is at the Marriott Renaissance Center, which will also be one of our community life?
Yes, we will have major programming at the Marriott Renaissance Center, both as far as congregations. We will have the Definitely Abled Youth Leadership event there. We will have major Synod Day, Proclaim Story activities during the day, and I'm not sure Community Life at Night, if that's going to happen there. I know it will during the day as well in various venues around the city. So no matter where you are during the day in Detroit, there will be something to do, to see, to drop in to see, places to eat, and a lot of experiences.
I'm going to jump in real quick just to also let you know that at the extravaganza, we are planning on having an information booth and sharing a lot of information about the city of Detroit, about the gathering, helping you have a chance to visit the venues and learn your way around downtown. And as we said, you'll also be at the venue in the restaurant center where a substantial portion of community life programming will be taking place. So again, would encourage you to come to the extravaganza if that's in your time and financial budget, just to get a head start on learning the city of Detroit. Switching back to you, Donna, I'm not sure. I don't see any additional questions. We did have one pop up about volunteers, but we've already kind of addressed that they're going to find out probably next in November as to whether or not they've been accepted. And of course, the majority of them will be, because we mostly have volunteer registration when we have volunteers. So I think that's correct, right?
That generally speaking, yes, Andy.
Yeah, generally speaking, of course. And I'm not seeing any additional questions, so I think we can probably wrap this up. If you'd like to say anything else and wave goodbye to folks.
Thank you, and we'll see you next summer. And at the E.
Thank you, folks, for participating, and this will be available later to view if you weren't able to see the live one, or you know someone else who wasn't able to see this live stream. It will be available to view via our Google Plus page, and we'll also link to it from Facebook, so you can watch this later on and see all of the questions and, more importantly, all of the answers. Thanks for watching. Thanks so much for participating. Paul and Natalie, thanks for your help as well. Have a great day.
Show us on your hand.